Okay, moving into our last conversation for today as we get all the details about Fisherfolk Month. We have with us on set Ralna Lewis, who is the Assistant Country Director for Wildlife Conservation Society. And we have Nidia Chacon, who is the Marine Conservation and Climate Adaptation Project Representative. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Fisherfolk Month. Is that being celebrated in June?
Yes.
Oh, so that means we should be out on a boat catching fish.
Exactly.
Or at least celebrating those who do so for a living. Yeah. Let's talk about what the purpose of celebrating this month is.
Okay, so this is the 5th year we're actually celebrating Fisherfolk Month in Belize. And this year we're celebrating it under the theme Ocean Health and Gender Equity, supporting access to markets for small-scale fishers.
That's a mouthful.
Yeah. The reason why we chose to celebrate Fisherfolk Month, it was done, I think, years ago in the past. They used to celebrate it on the 29th of June, which is recognized as Fisherfolk Day within the Caribbean. So what we decided is we wanted to expand that particular activity into a whole month of activities. And it's basically for us to recognize fishers. We went out, for example, I know we went out to do some boat-to-boat earlier this month because we had the opening of lobster season this Saturday. So we went, prior to that, we went to Glover's Reef, Saltwater Key, and we went to the boats, we visited the fishers, spoke to them about, the opening of the season. We hope that they would have a good season this year. And I think it was good for us to be able to see the type of, work that they're doing out there and the difficulties that they face. When we came back in from Glover's, we went through the channel at Tobacco Key, and it was so difficult, so rough. And when you see these sailboats, trying to navigate in that area, it gives you an appreciation for the difficulty that these men and women face at sea to bring us back the products that we like to eat.
But added to that, we also added other activities. We had the opening ceremony. This year we had it in Sartaneja, and it was led through Sartaneja Alliance for Conservation Development, which is SAC, in which they had the organizations, WCS, Fisheries Department, doing this communications activity about climate change, of course, involving not only fishers, but their families.
Yeah.
That was on the 26th of May. So apart from that, we had the Women's Forum, which is the 3rd year that we are celebrating.
And that's for women who are not just fisher folks, but
That's
they also support fisher folks, so they're a part of the industry.
Exactly.
Yes.
How has that been going? I found that to be interesting.
Well, this year we had a very interesting, and it was different. Our theme was our conversation in conservation. So what we did, we brought the ladies, instead of in a Biltmore AC forum, we brought them to Dangriga, and we had about 30 women participating, and we had the practical session. The fishers tend to say that their office is out there at the sea. Unlike us, our office is comfortable behind a computer. That's right, inside an AC. Well, these women were quite comfortable doing. They took part in the demonstration that we had. We had the seaweed demonstration, also as a deep sea demonstration. So we had these women very proactive, very collaborative. They were happy, smiling, because they felt comfortable. What they were learning is what they can apply if they would go out to sea. They have now new ideas that they don't have to only fish for the fish, but they can also survive by establishing seaweed farms. Of course, through permits, right? It's we're not promoting to just go out and throw a raft out there. Everything is through process, and that is what we were bringing out to the women this year. And the second day was the actual forum, in which we had a conversation with them on how they felt and what was their taking, what they are recommending for the following year. And also we had climate change as our major focus to bring to them, so that they can tell us about how it's impacting them. And we had very serious conversations, right, Ralna, about Punta Negra people being affected with the erosion.
Yeah.
We had Miss Paula
They're seeing the
Williams.
real life effects. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Could you say about Miss Paula? She mentioned about her house is about 2 feet away from the beach now, right?
Wow. Yeah.
You know, I wanted to ask, in terms of measuring the progress, what are the biggest and most promising steps forward? What are the improvements? What is the good news for somebody who is a horrible fisherman? I just season the water and drink beer when I go. But what are the improvements that we are having for fisher folk in Belize? What can the consumer look forward to, and what do fisher folk look forward to over the past year?
I think in the past, conservation organizations like ourselves have focused a lot on taking fishers off the sea and giving them alternative livelihoods that they wouldn't necessarily adapt to easily.
Yeah.
And we're now recognizing that it's not changing that lifestyle, but rather diversifying their income base. Like what the Fisheries Department is currently doing, looking at but other means of fishing, such as deep soul fishing, which is an activity that isn't heavily explored in Belize. So we're now equipping fishers with the knowledge, with the tools for them to go and explore the deep sea area, and bringing other types of seafood product to Belize. So our consumers can now have a wider variety of fin fish, whereas we're so used to the snappers, and we are seeing that those numbers are going down in the catch that fishers are selling at the market. So then we need to see what other type of products are out there that we can provide to our consumers, provide to these restaurants, because it's a big issue when you go to areas such as Hopkins and so on. People go there for the seafood, but it's so difficult for these restaurants to purchase seafood, even though there are fishers living there. So that's something that we're looking at. How can we diversify their income base? Also, like what Nidia is saying, the seaweed propagation. Seaweed is selling at $30 a pound in Belize. So, how we could, increase that income that they're bringing in, so their reliance on the sea is less, given the fact that we're experiencing impacts from climate change and so on.
How do we, if we're having difficulties servicing the local markets, how access to international markets is working? Because if we are not, you're saying that right in Dangriga, I go there, I might have problems getting, some nice fish, because even though the fish are there, there's not enough product. So is it the international market affecting it, or is just everybody suffering?
I think more so people are selling to your tourist-based places because there's a higher price that you're getting for that, as opposed to selling to your local, eatery or your mom and pop places, or even to us locals. When we go, sometimes it's very difficult to get that seafood that you want.
Yeah.
Right? We all experience that. You're getting a higher price if you go to San Pedro, if you go to Kikak or Placenza. So you would, there's direct linkages being made with fishers and these restaurants. So whatever they catch, all of that goes out there.
What do we know of, and that was going to be my question, because Kevin mentioned that, and I keep on saying it, because I think people need to understand we are importing catfish.
Yes.
That's what we eat in Belize, and especially us as locals specifically, because we're not meeting our demand. Do we have any knowledge, any study that's been done as to what the average consumption is in the country, including the tourist market?
I think in the past there was a study done, but to speak of offhand, no. What we're actually doing at WCS is going to some of these landing sites and see what type of seafood are being brought to these landing sites that are obviously being bought by locals, so that we can get a better understanding of that.
Yeah.
There is a program called Fish Right, Eat Right, however, which we're certifying restaurants that they're selling sustainably caught seafood or responsible seafood. And a part of the requirement for this initiative is that they use this app called Our Fish, whereby they record whatever product they're purchasing, whatever type of seafood, if it's fin, fish, conch, lobster, exactly the price and the quantity, and from which fisher, so that we can get an idea of which parts of the sea these products are being caught, right? So that we want to be able to be informed when we go out and we speak about things. We want to have some type of information when we're saying, this is what is being caught and so on, or consumed.
Or just to know how we can start to meet the local demand.
Exactly.
Because I would want to know I'm eating Belizean fish every time I eat fish in this country.
Well, if I could also add, Marlene, Currently, the Fisheries Department, under the Managed Access Program, we have a catch data logbook. So what do we ask the fishers is to record their catch every fishing trip. It's from there that we will know to answer your question that you're asking. They are giving us information on the fish, the type, the time they're taking, also as the lobster and the conch. And when it comes to the fish, they have to specify what fish they're catching. Jack, snapper, barracuda, groupers, and so forth. That is what is being implemented, and that information needs to be compiled and analyzed. So that's why we said that for now we cannot answer that question.
But you're working on it.
Yes, it's being collected.
That's good to know. Because I mean, you have a tourist market that's growing every single year, and any person who comes to an island wants to eat seafood. You know, that's just natural. So the demand there is so big. You know, one of the conversations we had, but I believe it was a cooperative, and I can't remember the specific one, or is an association of fishermen, were the challenges that fisherfolk face, and one of them is the rising cost of fuel. You know, I remember their plea so clearly, because they spoke of just what it costs to go out, the time spent away from home. You know, if they want to do deep sea fishing, that's a whole additional cost in terms of fuel. And that they were really hoping to become recognized as an entity where they can have incentives, whether it's reduction in tax in the fuel that they're using, or some kind of subsidization for this industry, because it is an industry. Where are we with that conversation? Because that's I mean, if fuel prices are hard for us to put in our cars, this is how they get out to get the product as a fisherman.
Yes, so with regards to that, what we've always encouraged fishers is for them to be organized. I think that's one of the biggest issues that we face sometimes, for them to be organized and have one voice. Even though there are several cooperatives, you know, there's an association for fishermen cooperatives. It would be good if they could come and present one united voice, like present some of these issues exactly like what you're saying, the fuel costs and so on. These are things that we can discuss on behalf of fishers, but it's best for them to be able to present that to our, you know, our persons in government. So that's something that we're always encouraging them to present that united voice, you know, the challenges that they're facing and so on.
Yeah. So,
is the fisherfolk depend on not only what they do, but there are certain policies. Are we in the right place in terms of policy? Is the government is the authorities, the governmental authorities, doing sufficient to help our fisherfolk to produce what they need to produce and to diversify? Are we in the right place?
I would say that we are collaborating under the MCCAP project, how we call it, for the Marine Conservation Climate Adaptation. We are assisting not only fishers, households to diversify. I mean,
it's working?
It is a 5-year project. We are in our final year. It has taken a while to come to the momentum to involve fishers in terms of sub-projects, because we have to recognize that fishers, you can tell them, we have this amount of money to involve you in a sub-project, but we need to meet. We need to have meetings. They are busy. They are out there doing their fish.
They're watching a trap right now.
Yes, so I can speak and tread very carefully that we have involved different groups. I could say that we have involved certainly have beach trap fishers in a project. We have involved Chinook fishers in cover structure project. We're involving Belize, Dangriga, and Hopkins all the way to rivers Placencia in the deep sea fishing. We're involving some fishers from Belize that are users of turnip in seaweed project, and that's how we are working with these sub-projects. And I said we are not only targeting the fishers, but also their households in skills training, in other type of training, so that they can supplement, so that the daddy doesn't have to think, I didn't bring enough fish, but my daughter, my son,
so it's not to
my
divert
wife.
them from fishing. It's that they
Yes.
have another reliable source of income.
As a family.
Okay.
And
Okay.
just to add to what Nidia is saying, we are making improvements, but there's always room for more improvement.
Yeah.
And one of the main things I have to say is that we have a Fisheries Bill that has been for years.
How
I'd have
long now?
to say for several years. I'd have to say probably
2,
from back in
No.
3,
2010,
4.
No, it's
2010,
long.
2011. Yes,
Yeah,
we
it's
wait.
long.
So we have that Fisheries Bill, and we're really hoping that the government, that the ministry would look towards, legislating that
What
bill.
are the hold up?
It's in line. From what we
For 8
know,
years?
it's
9?
not, it's not only our document there. It's in line. So I don't know where in the pile it is, but it's already in that pile, awaiting for approval.
And things like this, we know from experience, don't just happen based on order of submission. It's based on political will and pressure from the people.
Yes.
So when you, and I appreciate the opportunity of you bringing it up publicly on the media, because that's one of the ways to get it out there. But maybe if the fisher folks understand, what would be the impact of the implementation of the Fisheries Act?
Well, the thing is, when we did the Fisheries Bill, we had broad consultations, and we actually received support from our fisher organizations because they see the importance of it. There's a lot of things in there that actually support the fisheries sector and, supports ownership of the sector by our local Belizean fishers. There are measures in there that basically look at, protecting this resource for them and for, obviously, continuous generations. So we want to ensure that the government recognizes the importance of this bill, and that there's movement towards getting that bill signed and being adopted and put in place. We really hope that within this year at least that is something that is brought forward by the ministry. It would be a huge accomplishment for Belize. And the thing is, getting this bill legislated would show to the outside community that Belize is serious about its fisheries sector, and it will open up avenues to additional income. Like what Nidia is saying, the MCCAP project is to me, in my view, is a terrific project. The way it looked at diversifying income to me was very different from previous examples.
Yeah.
But the MCCAP project finishes next year. So we want to ensure that after this project finishes, there is still income available for our fishers to continue diversifying their income, for the families to continue to be supported, right? So this is why we push
Because there
for
are
things like
extended
these.
impacts from that. If you know that there's another income at home and I'm not getting the catch I need to get, I won't circumvent the regulations and go fishing in a no fishing area or undersize or out of season because of the pressure of having to provide the money. And it's always frustrating when we get this story, and unfortunately it happens quite often where agencies come and say, well, we have a bill sitting there for a while. So you talk of the importance, and maybe that's what we didn't get to. Fisheries, the fishing industry is not just one that supports a couple thousand registered fishers. You have the families, but it is also, it provides for the tourism industry, it provides healthy protein for the local market, fairly affordable as long as on a Good Friday, but also it is a part of our export industry, and we're very reliant on what we're sending out as well. You could get your Belizean lobster at Red Lobster, and I don't know people know that. So what's the income that's coming in currently from our fisheries export?
Approximately around 3% of our GDP is from the export of seafood products.
Yeah.
Right, so it's a good amount that's coming in from that. And then when we take into consideration what the local economy, it's also very significant.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
So it's an important industry.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I like what you said, it goes beyond just the actual persons on the sea catching the fish, its impact is so wide ranging.
Yeah.
I mean, we also noticed it, right, when we had the Women's Forum. We had the impact because we had the food processors, the food vendors, the scrapers. They have a job.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So how do we walk away at the end of Fisherfolk Month with two purposes? That your fisherfolk themselves recognize the contribution that they're doing and feel motivated to continue, and that those who were not directly involved in a family that benefits from fishing, that we also recognize their contribution.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big things that we want people to, and like what you're saying, it's beyond just the persons on the sea, it's their families, everyone that is involved in it. But I think one of the other takeaways for us, those involved in the management side, is for us to look in terms of the future of our fisheries sector. There are so many challenges that we're facing.
Yeah.
When fishers go out there, the impacts of climate change, the availability of products and so on. We want to see how we can basically improve this sector because we're so reliant on it, and we want to ensure that persons, beyond this year can continue to eat seafood, can continue to expect to get that seafood product on their table. So that is something that we as management need to also work on, how we can improve the sector.
No, I'm looking at the theme for this year, and honestly, this is more than you can chew. Gender equality alone is a huge area, and I think maybe last year you were dealing with it as well. And then ocean health is another huge chunk. Access to markets is a huge chunk. Why is it so broad this year? Is it, why is it so broad this year? As opposed to focusing on one, ocean health, for example.
Yeah, so the theme that we get usually comes from the FAO. So we integrate that theme into what we want to focus on. And for us, these works that we're doing that relates to that isn't only specifically for this month. It's work that we're doing throughout the year. So when you look at ocean health, we look at the work that we're doing in terms of climate change, promoting, responsible fishing and so on. When it comes to gender equity, this is something that's developing in the fisheries sector for us and something that we're trying to understand even better. The program director for MCCAP, as well as myself, we're looking at doing a network analysis in terms of how people are accessing the product, how fishers are communicating with each other, and how does that impact their access to markets and so on. So, it's things that we're doing throughout the year.
Could you talk a little about the ocean health component of the theme this year? And what specifically are we looking at with that aspect?
Well, for ocean health specifically, we're looking at climate change and the impacts of climate change, and more so the adaptation measures that fishers can put in place, which is a big component for the MCCAP project. So they have a communications officer who has been working on this throughout the year. And I think Nidia,
if I can elaborate, for example, we came up with the tag, Let's Save Our Belize, climate change. What we're doing, we are involving the country of Belize, about more than 12 communities, in communications, not teaching them what is climate change. We are involving them in understanding with them how they are being affected and letting them know this is climate change.
Yeah.
Because Belizeans...
Showing them.
Yes, Belizeans as a whole, if you go and ask them what a climate change, they think they have to give you a definition in the dictionary or what Google says. But when we begin to explain the weather, the climate, the temperatures, the water is getting warmer, it's dry, it's not raining.
I was just going to say, you want to see climate change? It's June. Where's the rain?
Yes. No, when we involve the community in this aspect, then we get to understand what do you need to do to be resilient, to adapt to these changes. And that is where we have this huge campaign on climate change that we're doing. We're not only involving the fishers, we're also involving the children, the youths, and the housewives as well. So that is what we're doing, because we cannot stop climate change. We can only learn how to adapt and be resilient. And one of those programs that we are doing is letting them know you need to diversify, because we are going to be impacted out there with the resources. So we need to do other things. Women need to learn to do the cooking, to sell, to do the proper nails, to get that skills training that they are normally accustomed, that the fisher will bring the money, but now they are involved and very proactive, and they are happy to be a part of this diversification.
Can I ask two final questions? One is in terms of diversity. I was wondering if, I know that there's a culture for fishermen for fisher folk. And let me go back, fishermen, that when they get their money, a lot of it is actually drunk away. I know a lot of them actually spend a lot of money on alcohol. They're away for a long time. When they come back, they want party. You see them at the local watering holes, and they're spending. Is there any focus on that aspect of having them a healthy sort of economy? Because if you spend your money on alcohol, you don't have money to take home.
We have had through the different organizations, the business aspect, the management with the fishers, training them, and through the sub-projects that we are also undertaking with them, they have the business plan incorporated, in which through consultation it was developed for them to implement. So they are getting knowledge on if you invest $100, how much do you get, and how much do you need to separate for you to go back. Yeah. Because it is true, many of them are struggling to go back to do their fishing. They have to go and they have to go to the cooperative and ask for loans when they don't have to go through that if there is proper management of the money. So we are involving the fishers through organizations. It's through WCS, through Fisheries Department, through even the associations, BFF, Bell Trade. I should not forget Bell Trade. They are involving the communities in the business aspect.
Why do I feel that you're shying away from NDAC, National Drug Abuse Council?
I really
is that an issue?
I really don't know much about NDAC.
I don't think that conversation has been had. That's the issue.
It's a necessary one.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen it everywhere. When you go to Sardinia, you just have to go to the Bridgefoot when the boats come in, and you know what they spend there. And it's an important conversation, which I hope you have sometime in the future. Yeah. The final question I want to ask is a selfish one. Mm-hmm. Are there any regulations in terms of fish, a certain fish, for example, barrow? I had a very nasty experience of getting siguan poisoning. What is the education process in terms of that, and how are you moving to help Belizeans understand this is a dangerous time to deal with, rather than just...
I believe what we do is when it arises, someone gets intoxicated with this ciguatera, a health notice is being advertised. Be aware that you need to, if you're consuming barracuda, it must be smaller than this length, because the bigger the fish, it's more toxins they are accumulating in their body. So many people will go like, oh, I won't eat barrow any at all. Mm-hmm. It's not that. It's the bigger the barracuda, the level of toxin is more concentrated.
Isn't there a period where you shouldn't eat it any at all when they eat?
Well, Ministry of Health usually sends out the release. Mm-hmm. And yeah. So, but that is an interesting note as well that we can follow up with them. What I do appreciate is hearing from you ladies that your efforts continue year-round in being able to improve the livelihoods and ensure that our fisher folk can remain in this industry but still have a secure sense of mind and maintain the conservation. It's a whole lot that we ask them to do sometimes, provide our fish, save our fish, maintain our fish stocks as well. But nonetheless, we do have many agencies and many fishermen and women who are involved, and so it's a month to celebrate them. Are there any public activities that people can participate as well?
There is. The 29th of June is actually the 28th of June this year we'll be having the award for Fisher of the Year. Oh. So we ask people to please do your submissions, contact WCS at 223-3271, our Fisheries Department at 224-4552. Yes, and ask for the form. Do your submissions. It's a great way to recognize our local fishers, right?
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We're going to go ahead and take that final break now, and when we come back, we'll have our wrap-up, so stay tuned.